Welcome to the home of the DIY movement, where we build stuff and paint things.
All right, y'all, it's way back Wednesday, man. Welcome back. Where we last left off, we bought the 62 two-door hardtop, black and red, Gallo Negro, because it's black and red and it's about to tear some shit up. So the first thing I did, right, was I bought this wrap frame, partially wrap frame, I should say. And the reason why I bought it was because I didn't want to have, a whole year's worth of downtime, or even longer of what you call downtime, to where, I pull the car off the frame and now I have, $20,000 or $15,000 worth of parts, spread all across the shop floor and nothing really to show for it, right? So I figured, I could probably build a whole nother rolling chassis and still get to enjoy my car, and then when the time comes, swap it over and then sell the original rolling chassis, for, a few $100 or whatever, get some money back. And there's not a whole lot of downtime, because if you buy a car and you want to take it off the frame, man, you're in for a surprise, right? You're in for a long downtime, or a lot of money being spent, in a short amount of time, or both. So I ran across this partially wrapped frame. It was up in the Dallas area, and it looked pretty good, I mean, kind of, when you buy wrap frames, if you're not buying from somebody with a, established reputation, you're kind of, winging it, because a lot can go wrong when you go to wrap a frame. If you go and, we're going to wrap the right rear corner from the spring perch back, and we're just going to focus on that. We're going to put a whole lot of heat on that, could bend the frame. It will bend the frame. Also, depends on how the frame has been transported. If you were to load the frame like what you see right here in the picture on a car hauler and strap it down, you're going to bend that frame. You should haul the frame upside down and strap it like that, because what's going to happen right here is you're going to strap it in the back corners and you're going to pull those rear arches down, and you're going to bend that frame. So, tech tip, if you guys are hauling frames, should haul them upside down. Anyways, I picked up this frame, and it was pretty much done except for the front cross member. I mean, you can see right here, this is not when I picked it up, but you can see where, the back, 75% of it, 85% of it is rusted, because it had, it's already been done. It's been sitting. So I hadn't bought the welder yet, welding machine. I mean, I had the little flux core, but, not really. And at the same time, I really don't know how to weld. I mean, I can weld, but I don't know how to weld, if that makes sense. So I took the frame and a rear end that I scored to Al over at Fine Line. And this picture right here is back when he used to work out of his driveway of his house. 67 right there on the body cart. In the back, looks like 67 frame next to it. And man, he used to work right there in the driveway. And Al's a good dude, man. So I took him the frame and I asked him if he can finish up the the cross member area. And he did exactly that, man. He did a good job, molded it in and made it kind of blend in, with the rest of the frame. The frame was, molded, and man, he did a knockout job, man. So I had him do that for me. He also did the upper A arms, and he did the bracket swap on the Lincoln Versailles rear end. So this right here is the bracket swap of the Lincoln Versailles rear end. So in the lowriding world, the Lincoln Versailles rear end used to be the holy grail of the rear ends for the Impalas for a number of reasons. One is it's a 4 9-inch rear end. Two is it's the perfect width, which I believe is 58.5 inches, which is or it might be 58.25. I'm not, don't get me lying, but it's narrow enough to run 13x7 wire wheels and still put skirts on your Impala. And the bonus of the Versailles is factory disc brakes. Okay, all you got to do is take the brackets from the Impala rear end and put them on the Versailles rear end, and you could bolt this up. Get a U-joint yoke that adapts, and you're in business, right? Today, when I was out talking to a friend of mine, man, I learned that you can't go to AutoZone or O'Reilly anymore and buy Lincoln Versailles rotors and calipers. I mean, maybe that's a regional thing, but he was like, man, you can't go to AutoZone and buy them no more. They don't make them anymore. You have to send them out and send the calipers out and get them rebuilt. And that's quite a hassle. So I think the 4.9 that are all over eBay, the quick performance 4.9s and all that, kind of put the Versailles out of business. Man, these things used to be, golden, man. If you could find, people would buy the Lincoln Versailles, the whole car, just to get the rear end, just to get the disc brake, factory 4 9-inch disc brake rear end to put in their Impala. And now it's it's old technology. Now they have, now Curry makes rear ends, and they can make them however wide you need them, disc brakes or not, drum brakes, So, 15 years ago, that was, barely getting discovered. So the Versailles was the go-to, and I actually scored one. I forgot where, but I scored one, and I had Al swap the brackets over for me. Here's another picture of the parts that he did for me. Looking at this picture right here, I guess he did do the lowers for me, but he didn't do the spring pockets. He just kind of reinforced the bottom half of them. Did the uppers, the lowers, the cross member, and I want to say maybe some work on the rear spring perches, and then of course the lower trailing arms. So I didn't have the welder. I didn't really have the knowledge, so I paid Al to do that aspect of the build. Picked it up from him, and we're in business. Here's a picture in the driveway of me. I believe I had to drill out the holes for the dog bone for the upper control arms. So a big issue that a lot of people overlook still today is, man, you have to mock up everything. You have to mock up the entire, ideally the entire car, but at least the rolling chassis if you wrap the frame. If you wrap the frame and you start reinforcing suspension, or you go tubular and you start messing with steering, and you go, either 500, 605, or, rack and pinion, you got to mock it up before paint. And a lot of people sleep on that because they'll buy parts from, A, B, or C, and, they're chrome or whatever, and they go to put them on, and, they rub in this little area right here, or, it rubs the frame, or, they chromed areas they shouldn't have, or poly, just build up from the plating process or powder coat process. So mocking is essential for an ultimate clean finish. So I had to drill the holes out, mocked them up, and we're in business. Here's a picture of the young man, Mr. Eggs. Told him to put the jack there and jack the thing up, and he's probably wondering what's this guy got me, what's this fool got me doing right here, man. But look at him now. He's all grown up, and he could probably lift that frame up, single-handedly. But so we were mocking this frame up right here in the driveway. I wanted to make sure that the rear end fit, and mainly the brackets that were welded on it. I wanted to make sure that they were squared up and that the frame would fit, and that the The yoke on the rear end was center line to the frame. So man, we did a whole lot of measurements right there in the driveway, and man, everything squared up. Everything squared up great. So we're in business as far as the rear end, you know, because another factor too, looking at this picture right here, is those wheels. They're roadster wire wheels. Of course, they're on backwards, but those wheels add extra width because of the adapters. So that's a factor too. But luckily, everything cleared just fine. I tried to put those wheels on the car before I tore it apart, and they wouldn't fit. So just wanted to double check everything before, you know, I sent it out to get powder coated. You know, here's another shot of the slip yoke drive line mocked up right there, and you can see the thing is pretty dead center. Now of course the differential is kicked over to the right, but the drive shaft is center line to the frame. Wishbone's in place, you know, rear trailing arms, you know, mocked up, and you know, looking at these pictures now, it's kind of taking me back because I know all this stuff now. I know to do all this stuff, and at the time of these pictures, I didn't really, I mean, I kind of knew what needed to be done, but I really didn't know how to do it, or what I was doing, or if what I was doing was right and okay, we're good to go. So I kind of was just like, okay, well, if things move freely, then we're good. You know, if anything is in a bind, then we need to rethink things. So, you know, now it's kind of, it comes natural, you know, where, okay, we need this, and this, we need these parts, and these parts will jive with these parts, and it'll make it work, and that's going to give you what you want. But it wasn't always like that. I had to figure it out, you know, pretty much like a lot of guys maybe watching the channel figuring it out, you know. So definitely a learning process, but I was very relieved to get the rear end, the entire rear end, you know, mocked up and cleared. You know, here's another picture. I went and got the cylinders and the springs. Those are those are 1-ton pre-cut springs and cylinders, and I was like, man, I'm gonna see how far it would go up before it puts it in a bind. And you know, that's way past in a bind, but I wasn't trying to lock, you know, get that high of a lockup anyways. I just wanted to see, push it to the extreme. But I did run coil unders. You guys watch the channel, I'm a big fan of that. I really don't like power balls and all that. I like coil under, kind of old school. And you know, man, boom, the rear end half, the back half of the frame is ready to roll. It's done, you know. So we figured out how high it can go. Now let's see how low it can go. So man, like I say, that Lincoln Versailles rear end is clutch, man. Still is. I mean, if you can find it at a bargain, it's still a good deal. But it's old technology, you know, compared to what they got out now. But man, you know, Lincoln Versailles disc brake, factory disc brake in the rooster, and man, that was, you know, I was real proud of that, man. I was real proud just to even have that in place, you know, without rubbing anything, because you're taking a rear end from a Ford car and putting it, you know, on a Chevrolet frame, you know, 15 years prior, you know. So mixing and matching, but those Versailles rear ends, they'd fall in place, man. They're good, you know, they're still good pieces to have. You know, this picture right here, that car, this was inside the shop. It looks like that car, you know, it had what they call a south side sway bar. But I'm gonna tell you, you know, I've said it before on the channel, you know, randomly, never made a video about it, but you know, basically a 73 to a 77 Monte Carlo rear sway bar fits. Maybe a little bit of bending, but not much, and you essentially achieve the same result. So that's what that is. Actually, that's something I found at a junkyard, and boom, you know, we're in business. We got the sway bar. So now the rear end is done with the cylinders in place and everything, and we're ready to roll. So the back half is done. On to the front. I think those coils right there are 4.5 ton, and if I recall correctly, they don't fit in Impala lower A-arms. So, you know, my neighbor a couple lots down had came over one day, introduced himself. He showed up on a 4-wheeler. And we got to talking, man, and you know, he said he builds barbecue pits and stuff, and I was like, man, kind of need some welding work. And I showed him what I was trying to do, and you know, this guy just had, I believe, 6-inch pipe laying around behind his house, man. So we chopped the pipe up, stuffed it in the control arm, and he welded up for me. And man, we're good. Didn't charge me a penny. So we had to do that to make those 4.5 tons, I believe 4.5. It might have been 4 tons. Make those fit in the Impala arms. I don't even remember the brand or what brand those were sold under, but the lower A arms are now done. Now looking back, you know, that's a stock ball joint. Stock ball joints in the uppers. You know, I don't really hop cars. I've never really hopped cars. So you know, from what I gathered, that's not ideal. You want to run uniballs or, you know, caprice spindles or whatever. But hey, man, we're learning as we go. And he made the springs fit for me. Didn't charge me a dime. Here's a picture of the front. Picture's probably out of order because obviously in this picture that bottom spring perch ain't cut. But I believe this is about the time that I learned that those springs ain't gonna fit in those lower A arms. But I believe it around this time I was mocking up the front disc brakes and make sure the A arms fit and clear the frame and don't rub and, you know, all that jive. So just another picture of the progress. So here we are. I believe this picture, everything was assembled except the steering linkage. Rear end is done. Front end is done. Cylinders in place. Springs in place. Disc brakes mocked up. Everything's ready to roll. I didn't test the tie rods, which is important, but they end up clearing just fine because Al, you know, chopped the front cross member back for me. So now we're ready. Now we got this thing assembled. Everything's mocked up, and you can see the rooster, the 62 sitting right there, still, you know, as a car, complete. So now we're ready to tear this thing apart and get it, you know, painted or powder coated. So I remember one day I was driving into town to pick the kids up from school, right? And I saw this dude, you know, in a field. He had a property. He was sandblasting. He was sandblasting heavy equipment. And I was like, man, right? I was surprised because it's out in the middle of nowhere. So, you know, I didn't go right then. I waited, you know, till next time I saw him out there, and I pulled in, and, you know, he came out real polite, you know, polite guy. And he was like, you know, can I help you? And I was like, well, you know, what are you doing? He was like, oh, I'm sandblasting, you know, and these parts. And I was like, you do that? And he was like, yeah, you know, you need that? And I was like, actually, yeah. Told him I had a car frame and I wanted it sandblasted and powder coated. And he said, well, he can't do powder coat because he doesn't have an oven, but he can get it in, you know, epoxy. And I didn't know what epoxy was at that time. And I was like, well, what's epoxy? And he was like, you know, it's basically black paint, you know, helps prevent rust. And I was like, okay, well, that's what I want. And, you know, next time, week later, or whatever, I took him this frame. And, man, you know, he had some heavy equipment, you know, so he hoisted that thing up. And he was done in like 2 hours. And it was ready for pickup, you know, and a couple hours after that, man. So at a bargain, man, I forgot what it was. I want to say it was like $400 for the frame and all the parts I had with it. It was a bargain, and I was real happy. Unfortunately, he doesn't do that anymore. I haven't seen him out there in a while, but man, he did a hell of a job on coating this frame for me. You know, here's all the suspension parts that he did, you know, for me. Rear end and spindles and everything. Taped the spindles up, man. You know, he did a hell of a job, man. So shout out to him. So now we have everything back, and we're ready to to assemble it with all new bolts and everything gonna be fresh. So here we are, man. I think I started on the rear end first. Everything went right back in place, and sealed up that third member there, and man, it just, everything went right in place because of the mock-up prior, making sure everything fit before everything is painted. Here's another shot with the sway bar on, and those skates, actually those wheel dollies, those skates I still have. It's a very important tool in the shop, and man, them things are a beast. I got them from Tommy back then with Accessible Systems. Shout out to Tommy. Man, them things are still working, man. Still putting in work. Looking at this picture right here of putting the upper control arm bushings, man. I ran into a guy at the Las Vegas show here about a month ago, and he said, man, that video, which I think I have a couple videos of this process, but he was like, man, that tool and that video that you did, man, helped me out so much, popping these bushings in. And I was like, man, once you have that tool and that impact, them things just zip right in. He was like, man, wow. So there's a early video, or early picture I should say, of me doing that before the YouTube channel. And man, thing is clutch, even with a little 1/4 inch impact. You don't even need a big heavy duty 1/2 inch impact. Here we are, front end's completely assembled, all new bolts, all new bushings, all new hardware, new brake calipers or whatever, front disc brake kit, and everything's ready to go, man. It sure was pretty. All right, we're coming up on about 22 minutes here. I don't want to take up a whole lot of you guys' time, but here we are. Last picture for this video is the rolling chassis assembled, and I have the 283 in there with no transmission, which that puts a lot of stress on them motor mounts, looking back. But ditch the cast iron power glide, and I think I picked up a 3-speed 350, if I remember right, for this car. But here we are, rolling chassis, brake lines in place, engines in place, and we're ready to park it and start on that body, man, and then transfer it over. So I hope you guys enjoyed this Way Back Wednesday. I think the next episode we're gonna dig into the hidden gems of that paint job and some rust repair, and a paint job, my first paint job, I should say, which I went black, which was a huge learning curve, but we're gonna get into that for next week's Way Back Wednesday, man. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, man. Y'all be sure to hit that subscribe button if you enjoy talking about this stuff, and y'all stay tuned for more work, and thanks for watching.